From Chesapeake, Virginia, the Lighthouse 100.1 presents Sports Scene. Sports Scene features local, regional, and nationally acclaimed guests and excellent interviews. Follow Sports Scene on Twitter at Greg Bick. Now here is Greg Bickaveris.
Sports Scene presented by Hampton Roads and OneLineMall.com. Greg Bickaveris along with Colleen. Sports Scene Saturday on the radio and WPMH and TuneIn.com by typing WPMH in the search bar at 10 a.m. all at the same time. Tell your friends about Sports Scene. Twitter at Greg Bick on YouTube as well. See the rest of my Twitter handles on gjbtv.com in the contact and social media section. Thank you to our military guest lineup presented by gjbtv.com. Our featured guest is Bram Weinstein, voice of the Washington football team and former ESPN TV anchor. Phone line presented by Greg Bick on YouTube. Please subscribe. gjbtv.com. NFL, college football, NBA, all taking center stage. Great interviews, excellent guests, business segments, highlights, commentary, what tees me off. We'd also like to welcome the men and women in uniform serving around the world, listening to today's version of Sports Scene on TuneIn.com by typing WPMH in the search bar. We hope you're enjoying today's broadcast. Stay tuned. Just a reminder, folks, Sports Scene is taped right here at the studios of WPMH, and portions of this program are pre-recorded. Thank you for listening to Sports Scene on the radio and online. And welcome back to Sports Scene right here on WPMH. Glad you're with us. Greg Bickaveris at Greg Bick on Twitter. It's a pleasure to talk to Bram Weinstein, the voice of the Washington football team. I first met him several years ago when he came down here as part of Red Zebra. We both worked there. He worked in D.C. Of course, we had the stations here in Virginia Beach. Former ESPN anchor. Bram, good to talk to you.
Nice to talk to you, too.
After a 4-6 mark, because a few weeks ago it did not look good. Instead of finding a way to win, they were finding a way to lose. And now all of a sudden, after the bye week, looks like a totally different team, especially closing out in the fourth quarter.
I don't really know what happened this year, honestly. Like, last year, I could see it on the field that it was going to turn when they had a similar record. They just were playing so much better, so much harder, so much more resilient, and thought if they got some breaks that they'd start winning. And this year, I mean, these did not show the same level of resolve going into the bye week. I didn't know what I was going to get coming out of it. Game against Tampa was outstanding, and yesterday I thought was Taylor Heineke's best game as a quarterback. And it's been a heck of a turnaround, and I don't know. Let's see where it goes. If they can somehow win these next two games, then it'll make those division games very relevant.
Yeah, they have an extra day off because they play Monday night. They're playing a team upcoming against Seattle who's struggling themselves big time, Bram.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen much of them, so it's hard for me to say much. All I know is I've seen their results, and they're not scoring right now, even though Russ is back. They don't have a defense like the defenses they've played regularly this year. I mean, we made a very big deal about the quarterbacks they were playing, and they do get one Monday night, Russell Wilson, but they played 5 of the top 10 defenses, including the top 3, heading into yesterday, including Carolina yesterday. They've had a really, really, really brutal schedule. I really wish that they had figured out how to beat either New Orleans or Denver. Those are the two that really, in my mind, got away from them. And if they'd won either one of them and sitting at 5-5, they'd be sitting very pretty for a wild card spot right now.
Yeah, but at the same time, you know, back early in week 2 when they beat the Giants, that could have gone either way. So I guess that you take some and you lose some. These are some of the stats that are kind of glaring for the casual fan out there, too. And, of course, Heineke played his college football here locally at Old Dominion, is that he's second in rushing behind Gibson on the team. How glaring is that still this late in the season?
But Gibson's fumbles?
Well, the fact that Gibson's leading in rushing, but Heineke is second as far as rushing yards.
Yeah. Well, I mean, none of it's designed. You know, very little of it's actually designed. He's ended up becoming a scrambler. They're not going to hand the ball off to McKissick a lot as a straight running back. And Patterson just hasn't gotten a lot of reps. I mean, that felt like it was an interesting choice that was made in the preseason. I don't think it's like a season-hinging thing, but the fact that they let Peyton Barber go, he looked great in camp. And they didn't have another real veteran in between the tackles running back, I thought was an interesting choice. And I'm waiting to see if Patterson's going to get more time. But, you know, I didn't feel like they had a lot of great running back depth when they came into the season. So I'm semi not surprised considering that Heineke has had to play all the games that he's ended up putting up the rushing numbers that he has.
Right, talking to Bram Weinstein, the voice of the Washington football team. And I got to tell you, Bram, because, we see the press conferences that Coach Rivera does. He handled this very well. I mean, his last team he took to the Super Bowl was the Panthers. A lot of his former assistants and some of his players are playing on the Washington football team. He always refers to Carolina, how we did things in Carolina the last couple seasons. So I thought he kept his emotions in check, and you could tell the relief on his face after he got the win recently.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the players knew it. Like, they were talking about it, kind of cracking jokes about it, really, more than anything. But they knew. They knew it was important to him. They also knew it was important to the season. That was a 5-5 team. Like, so they lose, they're done.
Yeah.
The chances of them catching Dallas to win the division, that's what's really different about last year. Dallas, while losing yesterday, isn't cratering. So the chances of them, even if they go on a run, catching Dallas because of the hole that they're in, it's really slim right now. They've got to win games like that if they want to have any shot at the playoffs, and they did. They're alive. I think Rivera, I talked to him privately a couple times. He just didn't kind of want to go there. It's pretty obvious that he still has a lot of affinity for the area, and he really appreciates the people of Charlotte. And, I don't know how he feels about the new ownership there because that's the person who ended up firing him. But he has said to us on many occasions that he feels like this gig and this job has helped reinvigorate him. He's 25 years in coaching now. He probably needed a change, too. Things were changing there. Cam Newton wasn't going to be the quarterback under him either. So they were getting ready for a rebuild. They had a whole new ownership, and maybe it was time, and I think he's probably come around to that.
Talking to Bram Weinstein, and of course, change is good sometimes, and of course, 7 teams making the postseason gives the Washington football team a gap. But you have to look at Philadelphia; they're improving. Carolina's just played one more game than Washington, but you got the Giants who are playing better, and of course, you never know what Atlanta's going to do. They struggled big time, but the Saints and San Francisco probably aren't going to be giving up too many more games, you would think, but it's still plenty of time left with a 17-game schedule.
Yeah, I really honestly feel like they've got to probably win 5 of 7 to have a shot at the wild card. At 6 of 7 probably does it. So I don't know where that's going to happen. As good as they've looked the last couple of weeks, I think you're asking a lot of them, especially with the amount of injuries that they have. But who knows? I mean, they went on this run last year. Their defense got better. I'm hoping Montez Sweat returns. I'm hoping Logan Thomas returns. Maybe Curtis Samuel plays. Maybe the line injuries will slow down a little bit. And then we'll see where we are at the end of it. I mean, I'm enjoying this now because coming out of the bye week, I didn't know what I was going to get. If we lose either one of these 2 games, I really don't think we'd be talking about a wild card run at all.
Right, because really there's no dominant team. Who would have said several weeks ago the Patriots would be one of the hottest teams in the AFC, and they are right now. And then, of course, in the NFC, you got a lot of teams like the Cardinals who have struggled with injuries. We're seeing the former Washington quarterback McCoy there. And, of course, the Packers, they've been up and down, too, with this whole drama with Aaron Rodgers. So you just never know. And then, of course, Dallas, they'll play good one week and then erratic the next week.
Yeah, it's hard to know in the league. I mean, Houston beat Tennessee. Jacksonville beat Buffalo. It's hard to know, what's going on week to week to week, which is why, I don't think, as great as these last these 2 weeks have been, I don't think we should get too high on anything at this point. I mean, things change very quickly in the league. But with 7 playoff spots up, there's a chance. There's a chance. Again, I still think 8 and 9 is going to be the bare minimum. 9 and 8 is likely. 10 and 7 will do it. So do the math on what they got left to get there. And it feels like they really want to ensure it. 6 and 1 is what they're going to have to do down the stretch.
What has surprised you the most about this team? I mean, it's been a very up and down year, of course. Like you said, Heineke, is he going to be the quarterback in 2022? Still remains to be seen. But, I mean, he's definitely durable. He's definitely playing with a lot of confidence. He's winning games that nobody predicted, especially with Tampa Bay. And of course, he seems just resilient.
He is the single biggest surprise to me. whether he ends up being a high-end backup or potentially their starter, for next year and beyond, we'll see. I think we got a ways to go. His resume works against him, his size, his stature, his arm strength, all that stuff, but that dude's a baller. Mm-hmm. He was awesome yesterday. He won the game for them yesterday. He makes plays at clutch moments. His decision-making is there. And I don't know, he's just got a great feel for the game. And if you go back to the summer, when they brought him in, if you think really through the timeline, he hadn't played very much. He had earned the right to compete. He put on some weight. They had asked him to do that. And in the summer, when they said the starting job was kind of open, it really wasn't. But they were basically saying to him, if you perform well here, we'll see where it ends up with you. Mm-hmm. And all they did was stick him in the pocket in practice, which is not, where he's going to really shine. So when the preseason games rolled around, practice, we'd sit around there and watch practice, he wasn't going to do anything that was, wow, this guy needs to be the starter. And I think it was by design. I think they wanted to teach him how to be an NFL quarterback and see where it ends up next year. Not this year, next year. And then quarter one, game one, Ryan Fitzpatrick gets hurt. He's not going to play again. And he's forced to play, and all this stuff went into kind of like a hyperspeed. And you saw it week to week. 1 week he's not running against the Chiefs. So the next week he is against Green Bay, but he's making some odd decisions in the red zone. And it's all kind of come back around to he's playing like himself. He's got a lot of confidence. It's why they like him. It's why they're the only ones that have confidence in him. And I don't know where it's going either because this is a very week-to-week league. But I think he has shown that he is a player. He is clutch. None of this is too big for him. And it's been a joy to watch him the last couple of weeks.
Absolutely. We'll see how it fares out against division teams in December, but he played Green Bay, Tampa Bay, Kansas City. He's playing it like it's no big deal. And you know this better than anybody, Bram. You can see the relief on Coach Rivera's face because he coached him in Carolina as well. He's familiar with them. Just that he doesn't have to answer questions about his former quarterback. You know who we're talking about every single week, the drama that was involved with the former Ohio State quarterback that played for Washington. That just the confidence and relief, that's one less issue Rivera's got to worry about on press conferences and during game planning as well. You can see it all over his face.
Yeah, I think this was an interesting week for him too. It actually was kind of a good thing that Cam Newton came back and played there against them, and looks like he does now, which is, it's not that he's not skilled, and it's not that he's not, effective, but he's not the same player that he was. When they were in the red zone, he looked like Cam Newton, and when they were, he looked like a guy who didn't want to get hit. He doesn't have the same speed. He's never been a great passer, and I think for Rivera, I think he respects him and doesn't want to say anything like that about him, but you could see on display why he didn't bring him in over the last couple of years, and it was probably ripe to do something different anyway. Does Heineke validate him? I don't know. But I will say this, like the team, he is very resilient. And it's been one of those things where I just don't know what we're watching here. Are we watching Kurt Warner? Are we watching a flash in the pan? I just don't know.
Right. There just hasn't been enough time. It's only been, 10 games this year. He came in after Fitzpatrick got hurt. And, of course, the playoff game last year. Speaking of, you brought up Fitzpatrick. What's his future?
I don't think it's here. I think it's extremely unlikely he's playing this year because of the hip injury. That was at last check a couple weeks ago. He signed a one-year deal. So, at his age, I don't know if he's coming back to play at all. We have to ask him that. And so I think they're going to be looking for another quarterback. And I think what happens here down the last 7 games will determine what level of quarterback are they looking at. Are they going to pick somebody in the first round? Are they going to go after another veteran? Are they going to go after a high-priced one like Matthew Stafford? Or are they going to try to get someone like Mitchell Trubisky? I think they're in the market for one, but I think Heineke's performance will determine what kind of quarterback they go after.
Mm-hmm. And, Bram, I want to leave you with this because I know you're limited for time here. I got to give you a lot of credit. Last year was your first year doing the games, and your whole team did it without any fans in the stands. How difficult was that your first year in calling games from primarily monitors? Tell the audience here, you rarely went to road trips, correct? And how different was it from year one and year two for you personally?
Yeah, we didn't go on any of the road games last year because of COVID, obviously. And it's exponentially different to call the game off television than it is when they're right in front of you, even without the fans. I'll get to the fans in a minute. You're a prisoner to the cameras. So, there are really tough moments, like when the camera gets fooled. There was last year, Daniel Jones had some 80-yard run against them, or some 60-yard run against them. Mm-hmm. And they fooled the cameras, and they couldn't tell that he kept it. And I didn't know where the ball was, and those 3 seconds feel like a year, when you're like, it's the cold sweat starts because you don't know what you're talking about now.
Yeah.
So that's frightening. And then it's just little things like they're showing a guy on the sideline talking to a coach, but they're about to snap the ball, but you don't know that, so you can't set up a play, you can't set up formation, you don't see substitutions. It's hard. It's just exponentially harder to do it off of television. That said, it's not like I didn't enjoy it. It's just harder.
Right.
The stuff without fans was dystopian and weird. And I'll never forget really how the season started and how it ended. First game of the year, nobody's there. They're down 17-0 to the Eagles. They come back and win. And I don't know if they were going to get booed off the field after the first half, or if anyone was going to stick around to see the comeback. And not having fans that may have worked to their advantage. And then by the end of the year, I know in a playoff game there would have been a full house. And that Heineke run, I don't know what the sound in the stadium would have been if anybody was there to actually witness it. So it was really strange. And it is so much better having the crowds back, having the sound back. It's kind of the soundtrack of what we do. And they tell the story for you. And so I'm so happy that, we're back to semi-normalcy here with all this.
Right, but I think you had the advantage because you had worked for ESPN and you called a lot of highlights and stuff, and same with Julie, at NBC Sports Washington. I think that really helped and brought it close to home. But also, 3 people in a booth is never easy. I think you've handled that very well, and you ought to be proud of yourself for doing that because that's not easy. And to juggle all those different factors, I think the fact that you can multitask and you've been on as an anchor and play-by-play and a talk show host, I think that definitely does help, correct?
Yeah, I think it all comes into play a little bit. Thank you for the compliment. I appreciate that.
Very good.
It all comes into play. Like when I went to ESPN, I'd never anchored a show like that before, and I learned how to do highlights on the fly. Mm-hmm. And you're in a break, and somebody comes in from the screening room and says, we're going to do this next. It's the Mavericks Jazz game because there was some crazy buzzer beater in it, and I haven't seen a second of it. Mm-hmm. So, and they're like, okay, and 5, 4, 3, and then all of a sudden you're just on air in front of millions of people doing a highlight sight unseen. Mm-hmm. And, that's kind of like live sports. You don't know what's going to happen. Play to play to play. You have no idea.
Right.
So there's that, I learned that lesson, and I think that's come into play. The talk show stuff helps when there's either a lull or an injury or, unfortunately, a score gets out of hand, and you've got to, try to fill the time with something that's interesting, so that comes into play. And with the 3-man booth, I will just say this about it. We're getting better. I think we needed some time together. There's no other, in the industry we call it reps. There's no, substitute for reps. We had never worked together before. We were working under very odd conditions last year with no crowd or off monitors, and we'd also not done this together before. And I think we're getting better and better as it goes along. Our timing's getting better, and you're right, there's not a lot of time in between plays, so 3 voices can be a lot. but we're starting to juggle it, and I think it's really coming around.
Right, because you know this layout. The others might not know this as well, because let's say, I know this is not something, that you're thinking about during the game, but let's say NFL Films is picking up your play-by-play. It's hard when you're hearing multiple voices, and I think your fellow colleagues have done a great job just laying out during that crucial call, because that's what fans want to know. And let me ask you this, Bram, when you first got into business, final question here, it was primarily, we would hear people on ESPN 980 or whatever, and they would hear it on the radio. Bram, I heard you on the radio, saw you on TV. But now there's so many different platforms. You guys have your own YouTube channel. Of course, streaming comes into play. What is the most feedback you're getting now from listeners and family and friends? Do they hear you on the radio? Do they hear you in other platforms or streaming? What are you getting the most feedback on?
Mainly streaming, social media clips, but mainly streaming. So it's important and imperative on us to, promote where people can hear it. It's not as simple as jumping in your car and putting on a station, but then again, people don't consume media that way anymore. So it exists, and we need to educate people where it is, and that part can be a little bit tricky. It's either through station websites, or it's through TuneIn, or it's through SiriusXM. But that could be hard to educate people because everybody's got a different device. Exactly. And listens to things a different way. But that's where it is. That's where it's going. I always think a home call for every team, especially in a league like the NFL or the NBA or Major League Baseball or hockey, it's still going to matter, in my opinion. I think it's still going to matter, even if it's not traditionally on the radio. I think it really matters. But educating people where they can find it, that's the onus is on us to do that, because I still do think it is a very valuable property to hear the people calling the game of your team, telling their story. They know it. You know it. You're having a conversation with them. It's not a national broadcast where people kind of swoop in, and it's not that they don't do a great job, but they don't tell the story in the way that we're going to tell it, because we're in and around the team every day, and we care about the result. And so I think, there's always going to be a place for it. Where we are right now is still that educational period of telling people where to find it.
Right. And the NFL finally is such a big monster in media that, you work for ESPN. I've done work for them before in the past too, that Thursday night college football game, I don't know one person who even talks about it. They'll pay attention to any NFL game. The NFL is such a beast on Monday night, Thursday night, Sundays. I love the Sunday day games myself. And of course, Saturday late in the season, that the NFL just supersedes everything until the Super Bowl is done.
Yeah, it's a behemoth. It is. It's funny. I remember a few years ago when it was kind of getting battered around politically a little bit, and I'm like, people didn't stop liking football, especially professional football in this country.
Yeah,
it's just people consume it differently now. They don't watch it the same way. Red Zone is ubiquitous now. People watch on their phones. There's dual screen experiences. Every time I see anybody say something like the ratings are down, and I'm like, okay, are the engagement numbers down? Are the streaming numbers down? No, they're probably all up. Because the younger generation doesn't watch it the same way, but they're still paying attention and engaged with it. So nothing really has changed there.
Right. Bram, all the best to you and your family for a great holiday season. We'll see you at the Dallas game here in a few weeks, but take care of business before then. In your second year as a Washington football team play-by-play voice, all the best and continued success.
Thanks. Happy Thanksgiving.
You too. Bram Weinstein right there, the voice of the Washington football team. Sports Scene will continue after these messages. Just a reminder, folks, Sports Scene is taped right here at the studios of WPMH, and portions of this program are pre-recorded. Thank you for listening to Sports Scene on the radio and online.
Aberdeen Barn Steakhouse, your destination for prime rib in Hampton Roads since 1966. Take advantage of this amazing holiday gift card special. Now through January 5th, buy $200 in gift cards for only $120. Treat your family, friends, and coworkers to delicious steaks and fresh seafood. For more, log on to aberdeenbarn.net and visit them daily at 5805 North Hampton Boulevard in Virginia Beach.
And welcome back to Sports Scene. Glad you're with us. Talking to 757 Sports Collectibles. Before we start, experience the magic of nature of a glittering 1 mile walk through the woods with nature nights and holiday lights at the Virginia Living Museum. The whole family will delight in an evening with nature walk with lights, hot cocoa, treats, and even an otter claws sighting. Shop local in the Wild Things Museum store for unique holiday gifts with no shipping required. Add an Abbott Planetarium show, Star of Wonder, or Holiday Magic from 5:30 to 8 p.m. Thursday through Sunday, beginning in late November. TheVLM.org is the website. Like them on Facebook and social media. Give them a call at 595-1900. A true wonder in Newport News is the Virginia Living Museum. And a true wonder in Virginia Beach is 757 Sports Collectibles. The owner, Anthony Cecchio. Anthony, happy holidays.
Happy holidays, Greg. Thanks for having me again.
How many years has it been now, Anthony, for your store?
We've been open 6 years now, so the business has been going for 7. We were a mall kiosk when we started, but now we've got the full retail store for 6 years.
Very nice. I guess, let's start off with the NFL. Anthony, the NFL is such a big monster. I was just talking to Bram Weinstein, the voice of the Washington football team, that, back in the day before Thursday Night Football, you would see college football on Thursdays on ESPN. I don't see anybody talking about the Thursday night game, whatever the college football game is, just because the NFL is so big. Now, of course, you cater to everybody in college and the NFL, but I'm just talking from a standpoint how big the NFL is.
Right, Greg. Yeah, it's definitely taken over. I would say, at least in the 757, it's getting about 80% of the fans. I mean, as far as compared to MLB, NCAA, NBA, NHL, it's definitely the giant. And even when I speak to some of my manufacturers, they say they sell 28 NFL teams better than the first MLB team.
Wow. What about college football?
College football is there. I will say with the pandemic last year with no fans in the stands, I think that kind of changed the popularity with the college game. The atmosphere is a big part of the game, and we definitely saw a downward trend with the college teams last year. It has come back this year, but it is interesting how, even what you said, the Thursday night games, I don't hear anybody talking about any college football Thursday night games anymore. It's mostly just whatever the NFL matchup is.
Let's talk about what you got in stock when people first walk in. This is your time of the year, now through New Year's Day especially, but of course, every day is a good day to go to 757, of course, and the Sports Collectibles great store in Virginia Beach.
Right, yeah, if you're a sports fan, it's great to come in. We do have the brand new limited edition Flash helmets in the store, both full-size and mini. That's going to be the first thing you see. We've got tons of great drinkware, some seasonal items. We've got autographs in the back corner and in all the display cases. Just a huge mix of all kinds of novelties, apparel, collectibles, perfect gifts for all the sports fans of the 757.
Very nice, very nice. Again, our good friends at CP Shuckers, Locals Tradition, Shore Drive, Pacific Avenue, delicious food, great appetizers, steak bites, sandwiches, burgers, all the games on TV. Go by and see Matt, Mark, and Chef Leon, and then from there go right to 757 Sports Collectibles. Really, there's something for everyone. I guess when you first got involved, maybe shipping was not as big of a deal, but now people can order through so many different ways. What are you finding more now today compared to, let's say, 6 years ago? People walking in and just buying stuff. How can they order your product?
So if you can't make it to our location on Virginia Beach Boulevard across from RK and Beach Ford, you can always go to our website, 757sc.com, and we've got over 100,000 products available right on site, everything from autographs to drinkware to novelties to apparel to items that we actually don't have stocked in the store. A lot of them are just direct from our manufacturers to our customers, so you get a nice selection in there, even if you can't make it into the store. But we do always appreciate seeing the sports fans of the 757 make the trip to our retail location, and we can always help you find something on our website and store if you're having trouble finding exactly what you want.
Well, let's get right to it, right with attire. A lot of times when I go to NFL games, I work a lot of NFL games on TV, I get some swag, T-shirts or whatever that I see at the arena. But talk about what you have. I mean, are jerseys still popular with older people?
So jerseys are always the number one thing we get called about, and I do try to let people know that we do have access to the jerseys. There's a lot of licensing rules that are involved. So in-store, we're actually only allowed to carry Dallas Cowboys because of the licensing agreements, but we are able to special order through our affiliate relationship with Fanatics. Any jersey you need, any apparel you need, sideline gear, and we actually do just get a commission from those type of sales that helps your local store while you're still getting, all the great gear that you want.
We'll talk about what you have most right now. That a lot of times this time of the year you see men, women, and children, all three coming in, buying stuff for, their grandparents or their friends or their neighbors or whatever, that office worker. What's a good go-to gift?
So since we've been selling them for several years, I do know the perfect gifts. It's obviously dependent on, the price level, what you want to give to whoever you're giving the gift to. But we have a nice, what's called the Heritage Banner. It shows the logo the team's used over their entire franchise history. That's a nice $34.99. It's all embroidered, small wall profile. Then if you want to go up to some framed items, we do have for teams that have won Super Bowls, like a ticket collection that has every Super Bowl they've won, nicely laid out in a frame piece. And then if you want to start going above and beyond that, we've got autographs from everybody's favorite stars on their teams. From ODU, we've got Taylor Heineke stuff now, which has been really popular. We've got tons of Washington football team stuff, tons of Steelers, tons of Eagles, tons of Dallas. Pretty much NFC East is always the big driver around here, but we do carry all 32 NFL teams.
And that's
respect.
Yeah, that's the great thing, too. Dallas is having a solid year. Washington football team is playing better. And, of course, you've got a great draw there with Heineke as the quarterback, and he's done very well in 2021, considering they started off, and they still have a losing record as we speak. But as he's evolving, the team's evolving. And, of course, he played for Old Dominion, so you got the best of both worlds.
Oh, yeah, I've actually got my Taylor Heineke shirt on at the moment. But, we're definitely pushing hard for him. I'm a little biased because I'm a 757 kid and I'm an ODU graduate, but it's just fun to watch the teams that people root for around here start to ascend and keep playing well.
Yeah, it's amazing how popular the NFL is pretty much from August all the way to the Super Bowl, and then the other sports start taking action. But what about the NBA and the NHL and other sports like Major League Baseball? And you're a tennis player like I am. What about us tennis players?
Tennis-wise, we don't get a ton of people in. I have had some special orders with tennis autographs. But as far as the other sports, we do get people at holiday time coming in to buy everything. We can always special order if we don't have it in the store. The NBA is kind of more apparel-driven than it is collectible novelty-wise, other than the cards with the NBA are insane. Everybody's trying to collect those at the moment, which we are carrying some of the retail packs now, so that's another thing we've added over the last couple of years. But as far as the NHL, we do get a lot of Caps, a lot of Rangers, a lot of Penguins, and like I said, we're always able to special order. In our special order catalog, we've probably got over 1 million products to choose from. So literally, if you walk in, you should leave with something that you want.
Final few moments with Anthony Cecchio. Mi Hogar Mexican Restaurant, 401 Granby Street, wishes everybody a happy holidays. Their phone number is 640-7705. Go by and see Armando and the great staff. Get some great tacos, burritos, and fajitas from Mi Hogar Mexican Restaurant, a crown jewel in Norfolk. Yeah, and of course, really, it's exciting too because everybody needs a gift for somebody. Sometimes it might not be easy, but sports is kind of a neutralizer, Anthony. Everybody likes a certain team, it seems like.
It is. It's an easy gift if you know your person you're buying for's team, and you can come in. We're always very helpful. We try to show everybody, the most popular gift items. And if you just don't like any of those options, we can show you things that we can get. And we always just want to make the customer happy. And I think the thing that, I always think about on Christmas Day is how many people, we helped to make that holiday special for them. So it's always a very nice feeling when we get to Christmas and we just think about all the people opening the gifts that they want that day.
Mm-hmm. What about people coming on site? I know before COVID, it was a lot easier to do autographs or, have some remotes there that you had people there on site. But is it Is that still as popular or not as popular now with so many different ways to connect on social media and do, FaceTime and so forth? How is that evolving?
So two tough things about the pandemic is we always have done a big-time charity auction program at people's charity events, so they can have memorabilia to raise money for their cause, and then we've done a lot of autograph signings. The last 2 years, those have we haven't done much of that just because, one, a lot of the athletes don't want to, put themselves out there to possibly get COVID and not be able to compete. And then also we don't want to put the customers at risk either. But we do have a lot of big things planned for 2022. I will tell you, definitely plan on seeing some more appearances from us, and then hopefully we'll be able to get the charity events going again so we can get the nice memorabilia out there for charities to make money fundraising.
All right. And, of course, the phone number is 340-4016. Give us your hours and all the social media.
So in store during the week, we are from 10 to 6, and then on Saturday, we are 10 to 5, and Sundays are 12 to 4. And then on all the different social media platforms is a little bit different, but we're 757 Sports Collectibles on Facebook, 757SC on Twitter, 757 Sports Collectibles on Instagram, and we're also at the intersection of Lynn Haven Parkway and Virginia Beach Boulevard across from the RK Chevrolet.
Give us that full address so people can GPS it.
Sure, it's 2686 Virginia Beach Boulevard in Virginia Beach, 23452.
Anthony, all the best to you and your family and your kid and everything, and hope whatever team everybody's rooting for wins in the month of December.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it. Look forward to the spring. Maybe we can get out there on the tennis courts.
That'll be great. That would be great, especially on clay courts. I like clay a lot better than hard courts.
A little easier on the knees.
Yeah, definitely. All the best to you and your family, Anthony. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Greg. Same to you.
All right.
Happy holidays.
Sports Scene will continue after these messages.
Sports Scene, Hampton Roads premier interview show with Greg Picaveras, each Saturday from 10 a.m. to 11.
And you look at that, 4-4 at home, which is just average, 4-3-1 on the road. I mean, you're not going to win any games like that. They were not the same team after they beat the Packers, yet the Packers were a totally different team.
Interact with Sports Scene on Twitter @GregBick and listen weekly as Greg interviews distinguished guests with excellent commentary and insight. Sports Scene, Saturdays at 10 a.m. on the Lighthouse 100.1 FM. It's now time for Greg's Highlights, presented by HamptonRoadsOnlineMall.com.
All right, highlights. Thank you for listening to Sports Scene. We love our regulars and tourists who listen online and on the radio. Highlights, GJBTV.com, HRSMHOF.com, HamptonRoadsOnlineMall.com, GJBTV.com. Click the YouTube link for archived audio and video and shows as well. Couple of questions to our esteemed producer, Colleen. Colleen, do you pause, pray, and reflect often?
I try to. Anyway, whenever I'm driving, especially when I'm driving in the car or just have a moment to think, or before I get up in the morning, those are probably the easiest times for me to be able to do that. But yes, I think we do when we try to anyway.
I think it's very important just to thank the man upstairs for all our blessings, our health and happiness and family. Part two of the question, of course, as we've talked about some of the first stations we worked at, one of the first stations I was on the air as a kid was WTJZ, based in Hampton, still operating under Epperson Broadcasting today, AM 1270. What's going on there with the WPMH family? Well,
TJZ 1270 is going to become WPMH 1270 very soon, and so we will have that. And so as you're listening, you may be able to hear that. And 1010 will be going away, at least silent for a little while until we could find another tower for that, or we might just continue on with 1270.
Absolutely. Okay, that is Highlights.
Sports Scene, Hampton Roads premier interview show with Greg Picaveras, each Saturday from 10 a.m. to 11.
And you look at that, 4-4 at home, which is just average, 4-3-1 on the road. I mean, you're not going to win any games like that. They were not the same team after they beat the Packers, yet the Packers were a totally different team.
Interact with Sports Scene on Twitter @GregBick and listen weekly as Greg interviews distinguished guests with excellent commentary and insight. Sports Scene, Saturdays at 10 a.m. on the Lighthouse 100.1 FM.
Aberdeen Barn Steakhouse, your destination for prime rib in Hampton Roads since 1966. Take advantage of this amazing holiday gift card special. Now through January 5th, buy $200 in gift cards for only $120. Treat your family, friends, and coworkers to delicious steaks and fresh seafood. For more, log on to aberdeenbarn.net and visit them daily at 5805 North Hampton Boulevard in Virginia Beach.
Here's important new information from the Diabetes Solution Center for you, a family member, or a loved one suffering with diabetes. If you have lost your provider, or if you need a provider for diabetic supplies, you may qualify to receive your diabetic testing supplies now with little or no out-of-pocket cost, regardless of your age. All you need is Medicare or private insurance to be potentially eligible. Call the Diabetes Solution Center right now for details. Just takes a couple of minutes. Our friendly, knowledgeable agents will give you free, no-obligation information, handle all the insurance paperwork, and make sure your supplies are delivered directly to your door for free.
Call U.S. Medical Supply 24 hours a day. 800-520-8629. 800-520-8629. 800-520-8629. Call right now. 800-520-8629.
Just a reminder, folks, Sports Scene is taped right here at the studios of WPMH, and portions of this program are pre-recorded. Thank you for listening to Sports Scene on the radio and online. And welcome back to Sports Scene. Glad you're with us. Greg Bicoveris with our featured monthly guest, George McLean from The Marksman. Military Mondays, First Responder Fridays, of course, and don't forget any archived interview, go to YouTube, type in George McLean Sports Scene, and you can hear archived shows. George, happy November and December to you. Hope all is well.
So far, so good, Greg. I hope all is well with you, and you're getting ready to gobble down that big turkey here in a couple of days.
Yeah, a few things here. Absolutely can't wait to that. And, of course, December as well. A couple things, George. Recently, I was, before we talk about your business, I was at a gas station on Mercury Boulevard pumping gas on a random weekday during the day. And as I was paying for my gas and getting back into my car, I heard gunshots outside. Right. That, of course, this time of the year, your alarms are more often, your ears are open more because it's dark earlier, it's the holiday season. Nothing happened in my vicinity, but just the thought of that, George, how do you prepare for that? Because you're running in your own errands and running your own business, and all of a sudden you hear a pause and then you hear that.
Well, I don't know. I mean, you can't prepare for the noises. You just have to prepare for the reality that you may be in danger at some point in time, but you've got to be able to evaluate and determine where the danger is coming from. And so, if it's someone that's going to be up close and attacking, that's probably easier to handle because it's going to be easier to identify. The issue with hearing gunshots at a distance is that you don't know where that bullet is coming from. You don't know how far it's going to travel before it stops. So it's kind of hard in that regard, like to get behind something if you haven't identified the direction that the noise came from. In that case, it's better probably just lay flat on the ground and hope whatever's zinging by misses you entirely, goes over top of you. That would probably be the best reaction.
Right, because we always talk about it's not necessarily that guns kill, it's the people that are using them. And, George, we continue to see day in and day out around the country and also locally here that people that should not be using firearms or not trained or not doing it by the legal proper way are getting access to these AR-15s and other semi-automatic guns.
Well, that's right. And obviously most of them, come into possession of these firearms illegally to start with. They either, have a friend or someone make a straw purchase, someone who does not have a police record, and they go in and are able to purchase the firearm for them. That's a totally illegal transaction. Or they're, in a gang and they break in and steal firearms. Yeah, so that's always going to be with us. We're never going to have a crime-free society. So the best that we can do as merchants in that particular business is to get everything locked up as tightly as we can, and hope and pray it's enough.
Talking to George McLean from the Marksman, Military Mondays, and First Responder Fridays. Glad you're with us. Greg Bicoveris on Sports Scene. Happy holidays to everyone. Another example, too, of violence was your vehicle that you can see what happened in Wisconsin, where it was an innocent family holiday parade, and somebody that might have committed a crime somewhere else was speeding right through the parade and killed and wounded several people. I mean, cars are also, lethal weapons. And when you go to these parades and holiday functions, not everybody has your best interest in mind, and you don't know who's drunk or trying to create a distraction like that unfortunate incident in Wisconsin.
That's right. And, that's obviously not the first time something like that has happened. And it just adds credence to the fact that there's crazies out there. And, there's just no way of telling, when your time's up, what's going to be happening on a particular day. You almost have to live with your head on a swivel and cognizant of what's around you all the time, and that's a habit I live with, and I try to get my family conditioned into that. But it's too easy for people to get distracted with other things that's more pleasant to think about. Than to be in a defensive posture every time that you're out in public. But it's getting to the point that that's pretty much what you have to do to remain safe.
I think that's great advice. My grandmother used to say, 2 eyes in front, 2 eyes in the back. And, of course...
That's exactly right. Yep.
Yeah.
You got to keep a head on a swivel.
Yeah. Phone number is 872-4130. That's 872-4130. George, give us your updated hours, how things have evolved now going through the holiday season.
Well, we're... everything is starting to ease up. It's not there, but hopefully one day we'll get back to our idea of what's normal. But we're opening at 10 a.m. For the retail sales public, and that's going until 7 o'clock in the evening. That's now Monday through Saturday. We're still closed on Sunday. So that's the last day. We're going to be getting our hours cranked back up to 8 p.m., which is our normal closing time. And then hopefully we'll get the Sundays going back as well for not only retail. Where before we had Sundays opening at noon, it was a short day from noon until 6. And have our concealed classes, which we're still doing those. And so it's kind of running a class a month, and so people are taking advantage of that to get the concealed permits. So far it's working out fairly good, but starting to make that escalation back to normal. So it's just ask everyone to still have patience with us, and so hopefully when January rolls around, we'll get a new state legislature and maybe a lot of these mandated restrictions and stuff that will fall by the wayside. And not that we don't need to be careful and the distancing and that and so much as we can, but I think a lot of this went overboard to the point that killed a lot of businesses, a lot of restaurants, a lot of other businesses. I think we've been very fortunate so far that my business has been able to survive. So we still have our fingers crossed with that.
What are some of the hot sellers? Tell us about the Glock and so many other arms that people are using now. The lanes are starting to become more and more open, but talk about the different firearms besides the Glock that people are showcasing this time of the year.
Well, yeah, the Glock's always popular firearm. A lot of the 34s and 43s, and they're kind of easy to hold. The SIG 365 is still a popular firearm. Ruger comes out with new models. Springfield as well. So those are probably the 4 bigger manufacturers, and they've each got a couple different models that's out. Our problem is being able to get what we want when we want it. So that's that kind of started way back when, and that's part of the supply chain issue that's going on still right now. That's easing up somewhat, but we still, for the most part, are waiting for our distributors will give us a call and say, okay, we've got this. Or you mentioned last month you're looking for let's say 365 and 2 Glock 43s, and we've got that now available and set those aside for you. So it's not like we can put an order in and get it the next day. It just really depends on what's available at the time.
Well, as far as the staffing in the store and so forth, it's always great to see newbies coming in, George, that have never experienced it before, and seeing that's the good thing about Facebook and social media is you can highlight it and show videos and, of course, captions about these people. And, of course, they tell their friends, and that's how a business grows.
Yeah, most of it's always kind of your word of mouth. There's an old saying, old adage, it says that if a person has a happy experience, they may tell 3 or 4 or 5 other people. If they had a bad experience, they're going to tell everybody they know. So that word of mouth is very, very important. It's very important that we take care of our customers and meet their needs as best we can.
And that's what this radio show does. We try to make it a big word of mouth to help George out and help all the different personalities and businesses in Hampton Roads. Sports is more about the sports. The scene can be anything going on in our daily lives. What about the Smith & Wesson Shield Plus, George? Talk about that.
Smith & Wesson has always put out good firearms, and that one is no different. I think it just simply boils down to what feels good in your hand, and when you pull the trigger. The biggest thing that I have as an instructor, and I've kind of passed down to my counter staff, is we don't push firearm sales. Our thing is to educate the customer and give them choices without giving them so many choices that it boggles the mind and they can't decide on anything. But they need to, before you go spending hundreds or in some cases thousands of dollars on a particular firearm, you need to shoot that firearm one similar to it to see if you can handle that particular caliber. If you like a 38 or a 9mm or a 40 or 45 or a 380, whichever you're comfortable with, because if you're not comfortable with the firearm, you're not going to train. You're not going to shoot that firearm to stay proficient. If you're comfortable and you like it, you're more apt to go to the range more often and stay proficient with that firearm. And that's what we want. Is so if you have to pull that firearm out to use it, automatically, instinctively, without thinking about it, how to operate that firearm, and hopefully it's going to save your life.
Right, and the SIG P365, we mentioned the Glock. It becomes down what somebody's comfortable with, correct, George? I mean, there's so many choices out there, but the bottom line is, just like you drive your car and get an oil change, you got to take care of your firearms as well, but also be mindful and cognizant how you're cleaning it and how you're preparing for it, like anything else.
Right, and a lot of that goes by the weight of the gun. How heavy it is. The heavier the gun, the less what I call perceived recoil. It takes more to move that firearm. The lighter the gun, with the same caliber ammo, the more recoil you're going to feel. So you've got that, and then how the gun actually feels in your hand as far as the shape of the grip and all of that. So it really gets down to a lot of personal preference, and just like you say about going out and picking out a new car, you're going to sit in it, you're going to look at it, you're going to touch the knobs and everything, and it's got to feel right for you, and that's why I really don't recommend husbands go out and buy the firearms for the wives, because they buy typically what they like, not what the wife would like. So it's kind of do your wife a favor. If you want her to get her gun, just turn her loose and let her do her own research, and whatever feels good to her. That would be the recommendation.
Yeah, to each his own. And 520 Industrial Park Drive in Newport News is where the Marksman is. Google the Marksman. Of course, like them on Facebook as well. And of course, the Marksman Firearms Training Center and Indoor Shooting Range. And of course, I have to leave you in a lighter note because fall is always hunting season. And every time I look out my window, I'm like, what is that? It's like a big deer, almost like a buck. He's just running rampant because I live near a lake and everything. And a lot of these times, these deers are just looking for shelter, and they're realizing that people are cutting down more and more bushes and trees in residential neighborhoods, especially during the daylight, and they're not finding that shelter like they would in the woods.
Yeah, and food is the other issue with that. So they start coming more into the city, trying to follow their nose, follow smells, and get into the garbage or the throwaway stuff. And they're like the rest of us. They do what's required to survive, and sometimes it puts them in a bit of more of a danger because they come into a residential area or into the city area versus the country. And I think sometimes they just need a little bit longer seasons to keep everything kind of wildlife thinned down. But this time of the year, this is a big deal all the way around. And so just everyone needs to be careful, be safe. Wear your bright orange when you're out in the woods hunting, and keep those firearms down to the ground, until you're sighted on that target and you know what you're shooting at.
Right. One of my favorite mental releases is being in the woods. I love it. The Marksman is a firearms training center, shooting sports retailer, and indoor shooting range located in Newport News. They have multiple lanes, 8 to be exact. And, of course, they offer concealed carry classes as well. George, happy Thanksgiving. Leave us with a final note.
Well, it's the final note is going to be safety. The recent incidences that we've all heard about on the news and have seen, they make an imprint on all of us. And the biggest thing is just be tolerant and be safe. Keep that head on the swivel, as we talked about earlier. Know what's going on. Keep an eye on your kids. Keep an eye on your loved ones, and just stay on top of the situation. Don't be surprised about anything. Start expecting the unexpected and be prepared to handle it. Very good, George. All the best, and we will talk to you in December. All right, Greg. Sounds good. You take care. Happy Thanksgiving. You too, my friend. George McLean, right there from the Marksman. Sports Scene will continue after these messages.
What tees you off? Presented by HamptonRoadsOnlineMall.com.
All right, what tees me off? Always a fun segment right here on Sports Scene. Happy holidays to everyone. Colleen, when you can't get a straight answer, when you try and try and try.
Oh, that's difficult. You're trying to get a real answer from somebody and they give you the runaround. I hate that.
When you try to help a customer, a client, you put 2 and 2 together and they want control, yet you're in the media business, they're not. It's almost like there can only be one expertise there.
Well, the customer's always right in a lot of situations, but in this instance, like with us, we're the experts, or people come to us and they tend to agree with however we present things. So in that case, we are the expert.
Insecure people who are in management and ownership that have to defer constantly to either their family members or somebody else. And you hear this story a lot about decision making, and that's really important. Like, you ask a client who makes the decision, he goes, well, I do, or my wife does, or somebody else does. No, there has to be one decision maker. I talked to one woman who owns a business. She lives in Gloucester and is based in Hampton, and she says a lot of the times the manager makes the decision. I kind of flat out told her, but she reminded me of my grandmother. Says, you need to really make the decision. You're the owner, because she's just going to go in circles. One person has to make a solid answer.
Right. I think sometimes people try to pass the buck a little bit with that. Oh, I don't make the decision, but maybe they really do. So, you need to have somebody who's the definite decision maker within the company.
I get Christmas is a big deal, and of course I love Thanksgiving. Easter is a big deal as well. But too much of one holiday seems all about Christmas over the other holidays.
You got to have a balance. We always enjoy getting out the festivities and having that. It makes you feel good, I think. But, you have to have time to savor each moment.
Coming back to work on a Monday after a road trip, it does take a minute.
Definitely so, especially early on a Monday.
Colleen, how about this? Too much to do in one day. That's almost laughable.
Always, I even have to take some stuff off my plate. I've learned that, it's like, okay, there's just no way I'm going to get that done. I'm a person that hates to say no to people, but, sometimes you do. You have to just say no.
Right, I get it. We all have to do this. Sometimes work nights and weekends, sometimes just to, catch up or whatever.
Sure.
But working on a Friday or Saturday night when it's partially outdoors in the cold, that's not fun.
Oh, I would not like that. That's for sure.
People not saying thank you after you hold the door open. Remember back in the day, we kind of took that for granted. Now these doors are very heavy, and 2 words, thank you.
I think I do try to make that. I was taught that growing up or whatever, that you should definitely say thank you to the person who's opening the door for you.
And this is mindful no matter where you go because it's the holidays, but this caught me off guard a few weeks ago. I was putting in gas, and as I was putting in gas during the daytime, I heard gunshots, and I've never heard that in my life while putting in gas. So please be careful.
There's a lot of that going on, unfortunately, lately.
Sports Scene will continue after this. Want to thank our guest today, Bram Weinstein, the voice of the Washington football team, Anthony Cecchio from 757 Sports Collectibles, and George McLean. For Colleen, I'm Greg Bicaveras. For more, go to gjbtv.com, click the YouTube link. Happy holidays, and we'll talk to you soon.